Thank you, everyone, for being here for our talk, Homefulness, Developing Healing Models Through Co-Housing. You can read more about us individually in our bios. This is going to be facilitated by Lauren Kattan, Sharon Vincuilla, Mel Trueblood-Stimpson, and myself, Melody Knox. This was created specifically for this My Dog is My Home annual conference. We ask that everyone please ask permission from Lab, Lead Our Animal Behavior, at this email here, labcollective@proton.me, to use any portion of the presentation. We don't mind sharing, but please just ask us for permission first before doing so. Okay, so these are some community agreements that we want to go through before we jump into it. We are creating space together. We're not just talking at you. We're all in this together. Please be mindful that a lot of this presentation is going to be based on our lived experiences with homelessness or with housing insecurity, both in the past and presently. There will not always be formal citations. There will be plenty, but there will not always be formal citations for everything. Personal stories are going to be shared in this space, and when they are shared, they stay here, please, because they are personal stories, and we are sharing them with the understanding and the implicit trust that you will respect that they are personal stories. Please take what you learn here, but keep the ultra specifics inside this space. So thank you for your understanding and cooperation with that. Okay, and with that, I will hand it off to Mel.
So, disrespectfully, we've watched a lot of speakers dance around the topics of racism, ableism, classism, transphobia, and many other forms of oppression that all affect housing. We're not going to do that here today. Please ask us anything in the chat. And we also have an anonymous submission form that anyone can use to give us feedback or questions. And if you don't want to hear about systemic oppression and how it touches everything housing related, then unfortunately, this is just not going to be the talk for you. We're not going to go into any serious details on every ism or phobia, so I don't think we necessarily need our content warning or our trigger warning here, but I'm just going to give everyone about 30 seconds as your opportunity to leave. No hard feelings. We understand that these are heavy topics. This is real life. These are real experiences. All right. So if you're still here, we're going to move on into an ancestral invocation. So the lab, we're international, so it's kind of hard to do a land acknowledgement since we're like all over the place. So we've created a labor acknowledgement and a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that much of our work takes place on stolen ancestral lands of many indigenous and/or nomadic peoples. We also acknowledge our debt to enslaved African and/or Black peoples whose labor and suffering built the economy of the so-called United States. The United States is a settler colonial nation state that refuses to recognize the humanity of its own racialized people whilst actively enacting genocide onto other nations. We want to invite you at this invocation to take a moment to reflect on the original peoples of this land that you're living and working on. We also implore you to reflect on why acknowledgements like this are just a starting point. And with that, I'll pass it to Sharon.
Thanks, Mel. Indigenous peoples have practiced co-regulation with the land for thousands of years. Co-regulation is a practice of feeling feelings, expressing feelings, and caring for feelings with other beings. I view co-regulation as being aware of my feelings and accepting the responsibility of caring for my feelings so that I can be present with others and respond to their feelings with respect, care, and integrity. So today we're going to practice feeling our feelings, expressing our feelings, and caring for our feelings together. First, I'm going to lead us through a body scan. Then we'll share our feelings in the chat. And finally, we'll have a minute to identify what we need to care for ourselves and either get that care or plan to get it later. So if you would like, please turn your attention onto yourself and your breath. Go ahead and just start to notice the quality of your breath, how it feels going in and out of your body. And see if you can notice a little deeper and feel your heartbeat. What's the rhythm or pace that your heart is moving at? Notice your gut and what's going on in there. Do you have any hunger or fullness or butterflies or bloating or pressure or pain? Do you have any stiffness in your hips? Notice what your legs and feet are doing or what they'd like to do. Do they want to move or do they want to sit still? Notice your arms and your hands. Are you fidgeting with anything? Are you holding anything? Do you feel any warmth or coolness? And notice what's going on in your head. Do you have any thoughts? What are they like? Are they fast or slow? Are you thinking about all the things you have to do later today, or are you present right now? So if you've been able to identify some feelings, go ahead and notice what those are. And if you'd like to share those in the chat, I encourage you to share those now. It could be emotions that you noticed or body sensations that you've noticed. And if you are having a hard time noticing what you feel or naming what you feel, that's totally normal. I often need 5 or 10 minutes to just notice what I'm feeling. And sometimes I need someone else's help to name that feeling. I'm dropping a link of feelings list link in the chat for you. So that might help you if you want to get more clear on what the options are for what your feelings could be. And if you've been able to identify a feeling, you could share it in the chat, like I said, or you can just journal it for yourself and make a note for yourself. And if this pace of this exercise feels too quick for you, you can just jot down what we're doing and you could try it again later when you have more space and time. Seeing some great noticings in the chat. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, our backs and our necks hold a lot of tension and stress. So if you've been able to notice a feeling, now you can see if you can connect that feeling to a need and see if you can figure out what that need is and how you might take care of that need. I'm going to put a list of examples in the chat for you. And if you have a moment right now where you can go and take care of that need, go ahead and do it. You've got a moment now to get a snack or sip some water, ask a loved one for a hug, or move your body a little bit. And if you don't have time to do that right now, go ahead and write down what kind of care you need, and then you can make sure to get that care later on today. All right, so we'll take one more deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And thank you for joining me in this brief practice of co-regulation. I'll hand it back over to you, Mel.
I'm going to bounce this actually to you, Lauren.
So the majority of us at this conference recognize that taking animals away from unhoused peoples is inhumane. It is also a form of colonial violence. Yet every day people are losing their animals due to being unhoused and vice versa. In the next slide. Thank you. And homelessness is not only residential, but it is also social exclusion. The statistics tell us that 50% of people in the United States are one paycheck away from being unhoused. By some estimates, the country is short 2.3 million housing units, and people identifying as Asian, Black, Native American, Pacific Islander, or mixed race represent more than half of all people experiencing homelessness in the US. It's pretty staggering. The majority of people that are, deprived of housing are marginalized identities, but do our support services reflect that? Co-sheltering is a critical step towards supporting unhoused people, but when the impact is so disproportionate, we clearly need to go a bit further. Homefulness is a culturally informed system of support that goes beyond co-housing by addressing the issues of disproportionality and residential and social exclusion. And with that, I'd like to hand it on over back to Sharon to discuss the concept of homefulness more.
Thanks, Lauren. Homelessness is not an individual failing. The current systems that we live in criminalize homelessness, keep people poor, exacerbate trauma, perpetuate isolation, and lead to psychosocial deterioration while also separating humans from their animal family members. Homefulness centers multi-marginalized wisdoms, supports many different ways of living with the land or being sheltered, and honors relationships between humans, animal kin, and the land. In this way, homefulness challenges the colonial concept of home as material. Viewing home as only a physical place reflects systemic values that prioritize property over human well-being. It reinforces structures that center property ownership as the primary marker of wealth, identity, and community status. This overlooks cultural and spiritual definitions of home, and it neglects the fact that simply having housing or shelter does not necessarily equate to the security or belonging that so many of us associate with a feeling of home.
So that takes us into some definitions of what is homefulness. So the Poor Press defines homefulness as a homeless, landless, self-determined movement solution to homelessness. And then we've created our own definition at Lab that we work with right now, which is homefulness is about us poor people reclaiming our collective multicultural, multiracial, and multi-marginalized wisdoms on how to live with the land as a spiritual being. We support many different types of living and being sheltered because the land is to be honored, not exploited. Our version of homefulness at Lab is intentionally in direct opposition to anyone that seeks to hoard, accumulate, buy, sell, evict on, incarcerate on, sweep, and so forth on this land. We reject colonial ideologies that disrupt, displace, and disconnect all living beings from the land. But this is just us. Other folks may have their own ways of approaching homefulness and their own ways of defining homefulness. This is just what we've come up as a collective of about 50 people at Lab. So then I've created this massive word cloud for you. So homefulness encapsulates a lot of things, such as, but not limited to, mutual aid, harm reduction, housing justice, accessibility, autonomy, radical compassion and radical care, reparations, cultural humility. And as you can guess, a lot of other things as you can see here. So the most important thing to just remember is that homefulness is multifaceted and intersectional. It moves beyond sheltering to fostering community with the land. And I can read off some others just for accessibility. Can't read off all of them, but just in case anyone can't visually see this: land back, colonialism, freedom, abolition, mutual aid, collectivism, relationality, harm reduction, healing justice, kinship, one health, being communal, honoring lived experiences, co-regulation, cultural fluidity. And then we've tried to break it down into 6 key takeaways for today for everyone. So homefulness is decolonial, autonomous and self-determining, collectivist, relational and reciprocal, restorative, and abolitionist. So we're not going to go into a big in-depth thing on colonialism and decolonization, but we've kind of just oversimplified, which we don't like to do, but it's a whole thing, right? We'd be here for 3 hours. But grossly oversimplified, colonialism turns the land into a commodity to be extracted and exploited. Instead of living in harmony with the land, these colonial values deal in separation, entitlement, exploitation, unceasing growth, more is always better, right? Artificial scarcity, making us compete with one another, competition, commodification, so turning the land into things to commodify, to exploit from, so like natural resources, for example, coercion, requiring us to bend to behave a certain way to survive, certainty, and just widespread control throughout the world. And then this is from the International Women's Development Agency, which is an indigenous-led group. A decolonial approach recognizes that our collective well-being is linked to the relational responsibilities or obligations we have towards each other and other forms of life. So you've likely probably heard a lot about your trauma-informed care. So colonialism relies on that subjugation of others. And the housing sector, unfortunately, inadvertently engages in colonial behavior sometimes. Colonialism, again, oversimplified, can be organized into a playbook of sorts of organized violence. And I break it down into three parts. So, one, colonialism is invading and exploiting. Two, colonialism is uprooting and displacing people. Three, colonialism is about hoarding power and resources. When we take a decolonized approach and a trauma-informed lens, this shows us that there's no hierarchy between human and animals. In my cultural background, animals are our kin, plants are our ancestors, and the land is a living spiritual entity. The land is sacred, if you will. And then this is a quote we love. The modern usage of the term homelessness obscures indigenous and cultural understandings of land and home, reinforcing colonial legacies in housing and displacement. And again, this is another topic that you can learn a lot more on. All of our courses are pay what you're able, so you can check out our Decolonizing Trauma-Informed Care course on this. So a lot of people don't realize that examples of homefulness are already existing in the world, have been for centuries. So there are some that you may not even think of, but are embodying homefulness. So for example, there are tent cities, such as Dignity Village in Oregon. There are also protected ceremonial sites. There's been indigenous reclamation of federal lands. For example, some of my relatives at Minewekone, which means water is life, but you've likely heard it called Standing Rock or the Standing Rock Resistance. There's also Camp Nanukase and so-called Minneapolis. And did you know when I travel to Europe, I have to be very careful about stopping on the side of the road with a vehicle, or I could be arrested solely based on my ethnicity. For the last 5 years, I have been fighting as one of the many ethnic minorities, is what the United Kingdom calls us, fighting against this policing bill that directly targets us Roma and Irish or Scottish traveler ethnicities. So when someone like me is in the United Kingdom, if I get a flat tire, if I stay and linger too long on the side of the road, I could be arrested. I could be fined, arrested, imprisoned. And yet here in the United States, it's always so jarring to me because if someone decides to live in a decommissioned school bus, here you guys just call it van life. So, but that would be illegal for me in the UK because of my ethnicity. You've likely also heard of boondocking, housing cooperatives, land sharing, and there's even land tax initiatives led by Black and Indigenous folks. One of the Indigenous ones would be the Appalachian Rekindling Project. They have a land tax initiative right now that you can go and check out. There are also designated free encampment areas, so legal, safe, monitored places that rely on community support, not policing, like in the UK, where people can camp for free and stop and be safe and, live with the land. And lastly, very important, there are movements like the Abolish Rent movement and Abolish Landlord movements. And then these are just some photos. So this is where I'm circling, I don't know if you can see this, but This is a Romani Vardo, which is our style of housing, and this ones are more stationary, so they don't move as much, kind of like trailers. But this one over here, this is specifically the Romana Chow, which are a very particular type. Us Roma, we have like 100 different subgroups or sub-tribes, if you will. But this is a Romana Chow Vardo that is completely mobile, so this one moves. And then here are some more examples of homefulness that you can incorporate after you leave here today. No one wants to sit the laundromat alone. No one likes that. Not enjoyable. So at one of the organizations I'm with, Here to Serve, we set up scheduled times where volunteers can go to the laundromat and with board games, card games, puzzles, coloring, anything, and just sit with unhoused folks while they're at the laundromat. Just give that companionship, that fellowship, right? You can also take unhoused folks to music festivals. I think music festivals are too much sensory wise, but a lot of folks love them. So we do a lot of music festivals. And then this next photo right here, down here, you can host movie and game nights by bringing these setups to the encampments. I cannot tell you how many times I have drained my car battery because we have Xbox, PlayStation, televisions, we have all that set up. We don't have a brick and mortar location or brick and mortar shelter at all. So we bring the brick and mortar to the encampments with generators, solar panels, and sometimes, unfortunately for me, my car battery. And then a very important aspect of homefulness when it comes to homefulness being healing is religious and spiritual services. So taking people when and where appropriate to temple can be really helpful to break up that Christian dominance that is intertwined with colonialism. Having to always rely on Christian spaces for your basic survival needs is really traumatizing for a lot of us. So it's really important that you collaborate. We have collaborations with a Hindu temple, a Buddhist temple, mosques, and even the Satanic temple. We just started a partnership with them. So just giving unhoused folks those options. Another great thing you can do, we just had a wedding. Plan weddings for folks. Any aspect of normalcy you can bring back into someone's life can be healing. This is an unhoused couple that we just did the wedding for. Just because you're unhoused, life doesn't stop. People still fall in love. They want to get married, even when they're living with the land. People want to do the so-called normal things that some of us do every day without even thinking twice about it. So bringing us all together, give everyone a breathing moment. How's everyone feel? Let's see if I can see anyone on camera. I see Sabrina, Zaza. Hope that's right. Hey. Everyone feeling good? Okay. I would keep going. I know it's heavy, but so bring us to our conclusion here. The current atomistic colonial approach to homelessness, while sometimes well-intentioned, it still keeps us stuck in this loop of constant, unyielding harm towards people, pets, wildlife, and the land as a whole. So we really have to consider expanding our definition of home. That's something that Lauren touched on, and I think Sharon as well. We have to really expand that definition of what is a home. Not everyone wants to be in the shelter system for a lot of reasons, right? So for me and my family and my cultural background, being Roma and Native and hodgepodge of white, for me, my sense of home is not tied to one location or really any physical space. I always joke that if I have my cats with me, then that's home, right? Or my dog is home. Womp, 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 womp. There it is. Title of the organization we're at. So think about those things. So again, as mixed indigenous and nomadic person, I feel at home along a particular river called the Tug River, which runs through Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. But I also feel at home back on the reservation where I spent some of my childhood on a Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, where some of my people were forcibly displaced to out of Appalachia, right? And of course, we want to prioritize that collective liberation, solidarity, not charity. You've probably heard that phrase. And last thing, a really big important is really listening to your community, making sure you have people that live in the community, representing the community. I know it sounds simple, but that's not what's happening in the housing sector. We have two unhoused people here at lab right now. So when it comes to anything housing related or big housing decisions, they're asked first. They get the final say. They tell us what they want to do. We can give them ideas of what we'd like to do, but they're the experts. They tell us what to do. Not in like a bossy, authoritarian way, a community way, like a collectivist way. But like they're the experts, right? So here are just some ideas, and I have this video for us to watch. This is a pet inclusivity pledge that is a draft, so I kind of had to cover it up a little bit for legality's sake. But pet inclusivity pledges like that, a great way to listen to your community are these community surveys. So we hang up poster board, duck cloth, whatever your works in your space, and you let people tell you that are living there in that environment what they want there. So we do this a lot where we put tarps up on vacant buildings, and not recommending this, but we do a lot. We leave spray paint so people can literally spray paint and vote on the tarp of what they want this vacant building to be. And then we take that as a very powerful symbol and we drag that into policy rooms. We drag that to city council meetings. We take that to Washington, D.C. with us. Like we take that in there and we show them. These people want a library. These people want a cafe. They want this or what have you. These are what your people are telling you. Listen to them. That's your job, right? So this is from Metanoia out of South Carolina. They're a really great group. We'll get the links in chats, don't worry. So I'm just going to play this. I know it's kind of hard to see. I can play it a couple of times too. We got time. So this is a historically Black neighborhood that's, been neglected intentionally by the system. And so they put up these poster boards where there's stickers so people can vote on what they want. They want a laundromat, they want a cafe, or what have you. I'm sorry, the sound's not playing. That's my fault, probably. But you can see all the little stickers. I can go back. There it is. So all those little stickers, they gave them option, park, cafe, library, etc. And then people put the stickers on what they're voting on. Hair salons, boutiques, all sorts of stuff. So that's just that. And then, of course, more photos. I like visuals. I like memes too. So you have to excuse my memes. I know I'm cringe, but I like them. The American third space is the car. How real is that, right? That's not the way it should be. There are other ways to live. There are better ways to live. These are just some photos of people that live with the land. And then just sometimes you have to get very creative. You have to build a shower trailer. The showers aren't going to come to you. So we built one with propane, solar panel. So sometimes you have to get creative, right? As I talked before, another healing model that can embody the homefulness, making sure the animals are cared for without judgment or shame. It's really nice to have mobile vet clinics come in, but we make sure to train those folks. They're the experts in the vet med side of things, right? But at Here to Serve and other groups I'm with, we make sure to teach the vet med professionals that are coming to the encampments with very clear protocols of how to be respectful to unhoused communities and people that are living with the land. That's something that I advise everyone to develop their own framework and program for because, again, they're the vet med professionals, but when they're caring for these animals, we have to be really careful that there's some things they can say that will re-traumatize people that are already traumatized by the system. And of course, removing animals doesn't work. I think we can all agree with that here. I think everyone knows that that's really traumatic. It doesn't work at all. And like I said, some of our volunteers are really passionate about the policy realm. So they do an annual trip. I don't go because I don't like the heat, but they go to Washington, D.C. in June normally each year. They take unhoused folks with them that want to go. That way we can make sure that their voices are heard. All right, so that's all I got for you. That's all my yapping. I'm going to hand it right back to Sharon.
Thank you, Mel. Those pictures really brought everything you're saying to life. So thank you for sharing those. All right, everybody, we're going to practice feeling our feelings, expressing our feelings, and caring for our feelings again, because it's good to build a habit of checking in with yourself regularly, especially after listening to someone else, but before responding to them. And because new feelings may have come up in response to what we've learned and witnessed here today, and it's important to take note of those. So again, I'm going to lead us through a body scan, and then we will share our feelings in the chat. And finally, we'll have a minute to identify what we need to care for ourselves and either get that care or plan to get it later. So go ahead and settle yourself either into your seat or onto your feet or in your bed, wherever you happen to be, and notice your breath. And you could start by taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, nice and slow. And then look a little deeper, see if you can feel your heartbeat and notice, is it faster or slower or the same as before? Then pay attention to what's going on in your guts. Do you have any feelings there, like tingling or expansiveness or constriction? Do you have any hunger now that you've been listening for a while? Or any sense of urgency or a sense of being relaxed? Let's take a look at our hips. Are they feeling tight or sore or loose? Are they able to hold you well, or do you need support? What are your legs and feet feeling? Do you notice any itchiness or ticklishness or pressure or temperature? What about your arms and your hands? Are your hands holding anything? Do you need something to fidget with? Are your hands comfortable in your lap, or do you need them to be petting your dog or your cat? And go ahead and return your attention to your breath one more time. And take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, nice and slow. So what feelings did you notice just now? I'm going to put that link in the chat again if you want to take a look at a list of feelings. This is a list of emotions, but you might also have noticed sensory feelings or physiological feelings, and those are related to emotions and they're related to your needs. Notice how your needs may have, or your feelings may have changed since the beginning of the session. And go ahead and feel free to share what you're noticing in the chat, or you can write it down in a journal if you want to keep it just for yourself. And now see if you can identify what need that feeling is related to. And what could you do to meet that need? I will share some examples again, if that's helpful. And you can either go ahead and meet that need now, or you can write it down and make sure that need gets met later on. So thank you for joining me for this quick co-regulation practice again.
All right. Thanks so much, Sharon. Okay. So, cards on the table, real talk. We have two unhoused community members in need right now. So, if you are feeling moved and there is something that you would like to do, or you're wondering, what can I do? If you have a few spare dollars to help our unhoused community members, you can scan that QR code, just point your phone or whatever it is right at the screen, or if you're on your phone, I believe you can just click right on it, and that will link you right to a couple of places where you can donate to help them directly, and it will go directly to them. And we wanted to share some gratitude. There were lots of people who helped make this possible, and lots of stories that we could share from lots of different places and other experiences that we've had. We're so thankful for their efforts within our shared communities, and of course, again, sharing their direct lived experiences and living with the land. So, poor press for providing this concept of homefulness and that definition. President Pobre, here to serve, Central Ohio Harm Reduction. Erin from Paratologia for providing the drawings that we saw earlier of the person with their dog, and others. Duluth Tenants, Dog at Heart, also for providing graphics and information. Mark Treat Repeat, which is Lauren's training and consulting business. The Positive Pity, which is myself. Um, Human Canine Collaborative, and Sacred Whisper Society. And these are our references if you would also like to check those out as well, because we're nerds. We like to have the references.
Very, very much nerd.
Yeah.
And we had this group exercise that it's optional. I'll put it in the chat for a Mentimeter. Anyone can do it anytime. But I want to give this rest of the time, we have at least 15 minutes to everyone. So this is your time, Q&A, or just yap at us. Even if you don't have
Mhm.
a question, if you have a comment, go for it.
Yeah, we have five in the Q&A section. So are we ready to take questions from the Q&A section yet, y'all? Feeling good about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And yeah, you're also totally able to it's just oh, we've got two people in here. Okay, so yeah. If you would like to unmute and ask your question in real time, you are more than welcome to. So the first one that I see here is from Shoshana. About There's a few. The question that you submitted at 12:36 about sense of blame and judgment. Okay, so the question is for anyone who would like to answer. There is often a sense of blame and judgment directed at people who are experiencing homelessness. Do you think that changing the terminology to homefulness and the idea that we are all connected to the land can change how society views people in crisis? And if so, how can we work towards this change?
I can yap about that,
All right.
unless you're feeling, Lauren. I can definitely yap about that. So you understand that, not, I don't mean you, Shoshana. I don't mean the person. I mean like a collective you, we, etc. Homelessness is not an individual failing. So there are some stats out there right now that 50% of folks in the United States are one paycheck away from being homeless. So we can change the wording going on. We can say homeless, we can say unhoused, we can do all that. We can mess around with the English, right? But that's not going to really do much. We have to change the system. We have to fight the system. And I know a lot of people say like the system's failing, but when you bring in the concept of colonialism and bring in my peoples and us indigenous peoples, then the system's not failing. The system's working exactly how it was intended. It's oppressing people and it's oppressing certain people at different levels. So I think the biggest thing to take away is to start looking at yourself, do some self-reflection, look at your own heart, and just remember that this is not an individual failing. Again, 50% of folks in the United States are at one paycheck away from being unhoused, right? And then there's also stats, there's like 48% of domestic abuse survivors, they don't leave because they don't want to leave their pets behind. So you can find all sorts of stats like that. It's a global problem, right? Which also shows us that colonialism is global too.
Very good. Okay, so this question is from Vicky Ramirez. Okay, beyond asking the survey questions with trusted known volunteers, how do you ask people what they want to get what they want versus what they think they can realistically receive? I feel if I asked someone what they would like, maybe they would just say a new tarp or a new halter for their dog instead of ability to live freely. Maybe what would you like now in 6 months, 1 year?
Can I say something here?
Yeah,
Like I want to say, so I would say that that's more going to come from developing a relationship of trust, a relational, like
I
getting to know
agree.
them better, being there consistently and meeting with them. And once they trust you, then it becomes easier to communicate what you need more
Hmm.
honestly or to think more deeply about it. And ideally, I think you could also be, if you're doing certain healing practices, then you're helping people better identify what they need. Because especially when you're coming from a place of trauma, it's very hard to, um, know what you need and to have the language to describe. So I think, yeah, I think it's a matter of just, building that relationship instead of a question on a survey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
bounce this
agree.
back to this slide. So this is Tony. So I got a call from an agency that was just like, "Hey Mel, we have someone who's Black and Indigenous and really combative, disruptive, etc." And so of course I got called because I'm Indigenous, and I'm like, well, it's not like addressing the full aspects of their identity. I can only help with so much. I can help maybe with Indigenous stuff. There's 5,000 different Indigenous groups in the world, so it's like if Tony is a different kind of Indigenous than I am, like what do you want me to do, you know? And I get these calls a lot. It took me and Tony from fisticuffs the first year to it took probably 5 years of building a relationship with Tony. And now not only is Tony someone that like I consider family, but they demand I put their photos in presentations, right? They tell me like, no, you're putting my photo in that presentation. You're going to that conference, you're putting it in there. I'm like, okay, all right, yeah. Yeah, whatever you want, you know? So we don't just like pick these photos random, you know, these people are they feel comfortable enough with us to tell us what they want. Tony wants this photo. He wants all of you to see this photo. This is his medicine box. So we've got cedar, sage, sweetgrass. We've got some indigenous soaps created by indigenous companies, Sakari Farms, and a bunch of other companies in there. I'm forgetting. He also wanted different gift cards. I know I have to be careful in saying this, but he wants cigarettes and he also wants some cannabis. So guess what? We got him cigarettes, cannabis. We don't question, we don't ask, we don't judge. They tell us what we want. We get it for them within reason, of course, because like we all have to keep our day jobs, right? But yeah, you know, we do what you have to do, and sometimes that is leaving a package on the top of my car and telling Tony, "Hey, there's something on top of my car," and me walking away, and then Tony gets package, and then that's it, you know? So like we have to work around the system, right? If the system's oppressing someone, we work around it. I hope that answers. Vicky, would you want to unmute at all?
They said that their audio and video is not connected. So
Oh, bummer. All right.
yeah, I'll check the chat to see. Yeah, it's all good. Okay. So kind of a bigger one. Um, I would love your thoughts on opportunities for animal welfare organizations and homeless service providers to reduce harm caused by the current systems and policies.
I think my answer is always learn about decolonization. Sorry, I'm a yapper and shameless plug. We have a whole course on decolonizing trauma-informed care. We don't turn it away. We're not being like, we have this course, buy it. We don't, if you can't afford it, we don't turn anyone away. We'll find a way. Just email us. We'll find a way to do it. So, like, yeah, I don't know. Learning from Indigenous,
Mhm.
Black people, go majority.
And what we talked about before, where just like centering the voices of the people who are most affected, um, And if they say to you, no, I truly do, this is my home, this is where I want to be, being in a physical shelter away from this home is not where I want to be. We don't want to think that we know better or that that is like the ultimate, goal for everyone. And so really just speaking with them and saying, what do you need? How can I support you? And yeah, animal welfare organizations, same thing. How can I support you? And it really is just that simple. Whether or not you're able to fulfill that need is another thing, but simply, yeah, as far as reducing harm goes, they know best about their situation and just genuinely listening to them and trusting them.
Yeah. Be honest. I know that sounds simple. Be honest. Oh, I tell people I can't get that for you because it's illegal. I can't get that for you because it's illegal. If it's not illegal, I'm not comfortable with that personally, with my own personal values. However, we can brainstorm some other ideas if you'd like. And sometimes the answer is F you, Mel, get out of here. And it's like, all right, okay, well, I honestly told them what I could and couldn't do. And being able to take that without getting defensive, being able to hear, I know it sucks. No one likes to be told off, but being able to be told off by unhoused folks, I feel is a big honor. I feel very honored that they're comfortable enough with me to tell me when I need to back off and when I need to, sorry to be blunt, when I need to F off.
Yeah. Um, okay, this is a good one and pretty topical. Another from Shoshana. In what ways do current sheltering or housing models reinforce isolation rather than connection?
That is a good one.
Mm,
I'm looking at you, Lauren.
yeah.
You wanna
So usually, wherever it's going to remove you from the community that you have in your neighborhood. You have to generally like go away from them. And so it is, isolating if if you need a place to stay and the shelter isn't nearby. Um, it's also not a thing that a lot of people can relate to, unless they're people that also have lived experience with it. So that by itself automatically makes you, kind of makes it's othering in that way. Um, and then the people that are serving you are housed. Usually they own their home or they are comfortable, they're safe in their home. They're never going to worry about, meals or, rent or anything like that. And you are, you like, have nothing. So it's kind of, that's also isolating. That feels really isolating. You can feel that distance, that kind of separation. And then, just a lot of services are kind of siloed, right? There's not a lot of, we're trying to get better about it, obviously, but these issues intersect and they don't, but the services don't. So yeah, I think it's just generally like part of that you could say is probably just being homeless, but also it is really just how the system is built is in order to engage with services, you are going to have to sacrifice some sort of autonomy, some kind of community being located where your community is. Yeah, and then just not really having anybody to relate to that you can talk to about it,
And think about the very
Yeah.
phrase, let's get you into housing. Let's get you this help. Okay, well, what about this other person that I'm in community with? Well, we don't want to help them, or we're not able to help them, or whatever the circumstances might be. The language is very individualized too. When we ask people, how can I help you? It is very
Right.
individual and doesn't think about the community as a whole.
It's also one thing if I'm coming up to you and say, "Hi, my name is Mel." What if I'm coming up to you and say, "May nasti Mel famimi shokai si romni tais nativo"? Are you going to be able to handle that? Am I going to come up to you and speak my indigenous language? How's that gonna track at the shelter system? And I guess I just want to add in, do people know what it's like to get a bed each night in most major cities? So it requires usually getting on a bus, riding the bus for hours to get to the one shelter that's even 24/7. You got to be there at a certain time each day, and you got to wait in line to even get a bed. And if you have pets, that ain't happening. You're not getting a bed. There's very little co-sheltering happening. Obviously, try and fix that so we're all here, right? But if the perfect shelter exists that allows pets, there's still a wait list. There's still hours each day of fighting for a bed. There's not always lockers, And here locally at our one shelter, you can't bring food in. So if I have Crohn's disease, I have a very particular diet. I can't bring my own food in and I can't eat the food they're serving. Or, very unpleasant things happen to me that I won't share with everyone, but like you can ask me about it offline. But yeah, so just keep those things in mind. Is it kosher? Is it halal? Are there going to be anything for celiacs? And the answer is no, unfortunately. So we really got to shake up the system. I'm sorry, I don't want to start preaching.
No, please do. Um, there's one more question, and we have 5 or 6 more minutes, so it's perfect. Uh, Shashan asked, I've heard from some people that options like tiny homes can feel inadequate or even offensive, especially when what they want is safe, permanent housing. How does a homefulness framework help us hold space for different definitions of home while still advocating for dignity, safety, and choice?
Yeah, all day, but I wonder, Sharon, do you have any thoughts on that by chance? Well, I calm myself down.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking back to um, the examples that you were sharing, Mel, about like bringing the brick and mortar to the encampments, right? Like, homefulness really is about um, uplifting and like honoring different ways of living and like wherever people are living, whatever land they're living with, homefulness is about like supporting that and helping that bring the abundance of life to that place. So it's really thinking about like, okay, how can we do the things here and like how can we create opportunities to engage in meaningful activities that people might engage in other places, but how can we do it here where the people are? And also, it's about figuring out and learning through the development of relationships based on trust and reciprocity. It's learning what is meaningful to people and why do they want to live in a certain way and how can we support them in doing that and how can we respect that that is meaningful to them even if that's not how I live or something that's meaningful to me. So I think it's really just it's in the approach, it's in that first recognition that just because something is different, because someone wants to live in a different way than I'm living, that doesn't mean that's wrong. I need to cultivate
Yep.
like curiosity about that.
Yeah, I say this with a massive disclaimer that I am very blessed and grateful to have a home. But there is one aspect of being housed that I don't see talked about. It has negatively affected my mental health. Being anchored and stuck in one place and these walls don't move, this does affect my mental health. I have to make sure every day I'm getting outside. So again, well, it's an and both, right? I'm grateful that I am housed and I have the stability. But for me, as part of my heritage, not being able to move, not having those Vardos or trailers, not being able to put in an encampment in West Virginia one day and then in Kentucky the other day, that has harmed my mental health to the point where I have to do a lot of stuff to regulate myself, right? So you have to keep that in mind that not everyone you talk to wants to be in the shelter. And then I feel we'd be remiss if I don't mention this. I'm sorry if this sounds irrelevant, but not all shelters are safe. In fact, most of them are not safe, especially if you are a woman, femme, or a mage, marginalized gender, especially if you're Black, Indigenous, Asian, person, global majority, disabled. How many shelters do you know can accommodate someone who's blind? My spouse is hard of hearing. How they can't necessarily, if I have a visual disability, so if I can't see the lights, how am I going to know when an alarm's going off? Like how am I going to know these things? The sensory aspects of being neurodivergent, disabled in any way. How are they going to cope with a very busy, loud, chaotic shelter? They're not. They're not going to be able to.
Mhm. Yeah, and just the question of like giving the example of tiny homes can feel inadequate or even offensive. It's not really a problem if you're not giving them an ultimatum, right? If you say to somebody, I have this option for you, and they say, no, thank you, you're not saying, well, it's either that or you're getting swept. right? So like take one or the other, or saying, wow, like you have, like we can, especially animal care people, like we can get so invested in the animals and their safety and be like, wow, you have an opportunity for a roof for your dog or for your cat or for your rabbit or whatever, and you're not going to take it because it's not sufficient for you. Wow, you're so selfish. And seeing it from like you are offering this option, but it is just that it's an option. It's not an ultimatum, and it's not coming with, if you don't take it, we are going to judge you. There is a reason why people might not accept something that you're offering, and you are not entitled to an explanation or to completely understanding it. But you, if you want to be better, if you want to be better about the work that you're doing, you need to accept that rejection without any prejudice or judging and say, okay, what will work for you then? What would work? So it sounds oversimplified, but it really is just about
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah. All right, we're at time.
Yes, we're at time. That was the last question. We did it perfectly. 1 hour. Um, yeah, just again, thank you everyone so much for coming. And clearly, you know, you all want to do this is really, really hard work. And it was awesome to see so many people here that want to improve the world and improve themselves to help, you know, to help work through this with more of a decolonial lens and, you know, framework. So thanks everyone so much.
Chasing